Hey everybody, welcome to the stream today. Um, let's get transitioned over and let's get started. You guys, if you've been with us for a while, you've probably seen this application. Um, it's been, if we take a look, well, actually, first of all, let's address some housekeeping. Last week, um, it's been a little over a week since our oldest dog, we had to put her down. She was her internal organs were failing, and she just degraded really fast, and she was in so much pain. Um, and so on Sunday last week, I spent some time with my youngest daughter, and we just spent some time hanging out. And I appreciate that. Hey, Michael, thank you for that. So I just wanted to recognize that, yeah, last week was an unplanned skip in the streaming, but very needed, just in the long run to help out my daughter, and just help the family a bit in the healing. Um, so skipped last week. This week on the 30th we have so January 30th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, I will be presenting for Angular NG Asia. I've presented for them a couple of times before, and I really enjoy it. I'm looking forward to this one. They asked me if I would do some anti-gravity stuff. And so that's what I want to take a look at today. And in particular, like, everybody knows how to use LLMs for code generation, right? Everybody's doing that. What I want to take a look at it from is, can we use LLMs to help us improve architecture, to help us upgrade stuff, to help us work with code that we haven't touched in a while? And if we take a look at this, the last merge into main was 2 years ago. It's crazy to think that the full stack dynos is 2 years old. It's still on Angular 17, um, and it's a bit behind. So the first thing I want to do is let's get this up to date. Once it's up to date, let's throw anti-gravity at it and just be like, hey, what can you tell me about this? Where can we improve? And then I want to take a look at, hey, can we get anti-gravity to help us start doing some signal forms upgrade? And that's what I want to do here. It's using Graph, and I haven't touched Graph in probably 2 years. So this is going to be like having an AI help me is going to be huge. It's going to be huge, right? Um, so that's the goal of today, is to get an AI in place that can help me. And then we're going to talk about, how we add that to projects, how we move forward, and things like that. So that's what I want to do today. That's what I want to accomplish is, let's get an AI in place. Let's get the AI talking about signal forms. Let's get the AI doing stuff for us, right? Once we get that in place, I do want to continue with this upgrade path on Angular dynos. I think it's an interesting application because it's an actual full stack application. It's not just Angular. It's not just us putting together a toy. It was us putting together a full stack application, but building it in a way that it was composable. So it's a more complicated architecture, and I'm curious to see how the AI understands and works with that. And so I want to dig into this. I want to completely upgrade full stack dynos to signal forms. I think that will be an interesting challenge. And then from there, I don't know. I've had a couple of ideas of things that I want to do. I want to build a game. Um, One of the things that I think has been tradition that we probably should take a look at is we need to look at our Sudoku game and make sure that that's up on the latest version of Angular. Um, I think we're a couple versions behind on that also. But I think with AI, we can do a lot of these upgrades that, it took a couple of streams in maybe half as many streams. That's my thought. Um, so this week we'll be preparing for the stream next for the presentation on the 30th. Next week we'll keep digging into migrating full stack dynos, and we'll probably jump into the Sudoku game, get that all cleaned up, and then from there we will potentially create our own game. I like card games. I like randomness. Maybe we'll do something with that. I've had a couple of ideas. But that's where we are. The weekend of the 9th, I'm going to be traveling with my family. So I won't be streaming Sunday the 9th. That's 2 weeks from today. We're going to be going down to visit my daughter's college campus. She starts college soon. We're going to go visit that with her, go take a look at the apartments that she's picked online to go live in, and just go do some college stuff. And that weekend is some dance competition stuff too. So that's what we'll be doing. Other than that, that's kind of the housekeeping. I do want to jump into this because it's been a good while. And I'm looking forward to it. One thing I am noticing is that my streaming seems to be smoother today. I spent a bunch of time last weekend with my ISP, and so I am hoping that everything goes well today. We shouldn't have any drops. If we have drops, then we'll be fixing that out. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So here we are. Here's our Dynos API. If I remember, I don't even remember the application that well. We've got a couple of dinosaurs here, and wow, we really went all in on this one. If we send this to OpenAI, does that still work? Okay, so that piece doesn't work. We'll probably have to fix that piece up later. Fascinating that we've got OpenAI in place. Our edit piece is in place. Looks like we can't edit stuff like that. We've even got an infinite spinner on our save. I'm not even sure why. And if we add a dyno, fascinating. I'm fascinated by this application. Hey, Ole, I'm doing well. How are you doing, man? Welcome to the stream. Thanks for showing up. I remember building this application, but it took a while. Like, I had to remember to run the Docker container. I probably need to upgrade Docker, and I probably need to upgrade Postgres in the Docker container. We'll worry about that later. I would say you know what, we're at a point right now where we're kind of at a we're at a stage where we're set and good to go. Like, it all serves and it all works. I would like to see what Antigravity thinks at this point. And so one of the things I want to do is, if we pull open the signal forms experiment. Let's open that in a new pane next to this, and then let's open up the full stack dynos here. And so inside of here, we've got the LLM's full.txt, right? And this file is the file that tells it how to work with Angular. So if we open this, and I'm not even sure what editor it's going to open it in. It opened it in a text editor. Prerequisites, instructions, install the CLI, the shell, the text. So this looks like the file that we've been using to teach it about Angular. Let's move that over. I didn't want to move that. Let's undo that move, and instead, let's copy this over. Come on. So we'll copy it, and then we'll paste it over here, and there we go. So now we've added our LLM stuff. Oh, yes, I did. I did see the Angular skills from Analog. Let's take a look at those too. Thank you for reminding me about that. Brandon's been doing some really cool stuff lately, and thank you for the reminder, Ole. Let's go ahead and let's grab this and boom. So Angular skills. These skills provide coding agents best practices. And you know what? Let's just throw it all in. Let's remove the LLM's full. We can always add that in later. So we'll go ahead and delete that file. And instead, we're going to add the stuff from Brandon. So let's go ahead and add that. Let's go over here. And we've proven that it works. So let's go. Let's shut down our server for right now. We'll shut down both servers. And at this point, we're going to paste in our skills. And we're going to add the analog Angular skills. The cool thing about this is that it's going to stay up to date. And that's one of the big problems that you'll run into. Need to install the following packages, skills. Yes, go ahead. One of the big problems that we're going to run into as we get into larger organizations is you're going to be collecting these files, right? Different files that are going to tell agents how to work and things like that. Oh, this is cool. So we're going to do components, dependency injection, directives, great, forms, HTTP routing, signals, SSR, testing, and tooling. Sounds great. Yeah, let's do both Antigravity and Gemini CLI. we're going to install it within the project. Sure, we'll do a symlink. And yes, we'll proceed with installation. So there we go. So as you're working with AI agents and stuff in your organization, one of the first things you're going to run into is you're going to run into this problem of how do we keep everything up to date, things like that. I like the idea of using NPM to do this. And there are a couple of things we've been looking into at work for how to do this, but repos, NPM, stuff like that are ways that you can keep these things up to date without all the cutting and pasting. And that's a big deal. So we've got the anti-gravity stuff in place. So now if we take a look, it put everything in our agents folder. Let's go ahead and take a look at our agents folder here. Where's my .angular? Where's my agents? Oh, I put it in, I'm looking at the wrong side. There's my .agents and skills, and there's our Angular components, right? So if we take a look at signals, there's the markdown file and the different references for that, right? So hugely beneficial. Now that we've got this in place, let's go ahead and commit that, because I want to be very intentional about the commits. So we'll go ahead and stage this and we'll let AI make our commit message for us. And so now we've added the Angular skills from the analog folder. Thank you, Ole, for bringing that up. Let's use these skills today. So at this point, we're in a good place to be able to start up Antigravity. So let's go ahead and start up Antigravity. And we're still in the signal forms, but we're going to change that. Let's open a folder. We're going to skip Docker stuff, but right now we want to open full stack dynos. Let's go ahead and select that. And so Antigravity should be picking some stuff up for us. I'm not going to install anything right now. But here, right, we're in our agent view. Let's get some information about our project. So we're using Claude right now. We're using planning mode. And the difference between planning mode and anything else is that planning mode asks us questions. And let's just see what Antigravity thinks about our architecture. Hey, it's been 2 years since I worked on this project. Give me an overview of the architecture and design. Give me some areas I can. Actually, let's not do that. Provide your level of confidence with your overview, right? And one thing that is always funny to add is do not hallucinate. The funny thing is, I'm not sure how good this is anymore, but in the past, this actually improved the level of um, just the level of quality that you would get out of an LLM. So let's see what Claude gives us based on the small changes that we've done. So it's exploring the architecture. So it's analyzing the README, the package, NX, schema, great. Analyzing all the packages, the projects. And now it's starting to analyze the source. And so it looked at the APIs, and now it's looking at the source itself. It's looking at the GraphQL. So now it's looking more at the structure. And I mean, I know you guys could probably read. You probably don't need me giving the play-by-play, but this is just helping me coalesce things in my mind too, right? So it's looking at the complete architecture. Full stack, great. So now we're getting some architecture stuff that we're going to go through and take a look at. There's a lot going on here. We're probably going to need to ask it to help us upgrade. One of the things I want to do is ask it to help us upgrade to Angular 21. Confidence level 90%. That's pretty good. So let's go back and see what the LLM told us about this project. And I think this is one of the key things where where AI, where LLMs and agentic flow is going to help us out the most as we get more and more into modern development. Having the agents do stuff for us, like the amount of time that it probably would have taken me to look over this code base and remember what's going on would not be insignificant. And did I commit here? Yes. So this is, I want to tag this. Where is my create branch, revert commit? Create tag here. And the tag I want to do is, this will be the demo start tag. So I've tagged this so that I know to check this out when we, so this will be the starting point for the presentation. We're going to do pretty much the same thing. So it's analyzed everything, and so now it's based on my exploration of your code base. Here's a comprehensive overview. So it uses an NX monorepo, and that is correct, right? The backend is Nest.js, GraphQL API. The front end is Angular 17, single page application. The database is a Postgres SQL with Prisma. That's correct. Those are all correct. The monorepo is organized with packages in the package directory. So we've got the Dynos API. That's the backend Nest application. That's something that I didn't remember and had to look up in the README. The end-to-end tests, the front-end Angular application, and the front-end tests written in Cypress. We've got Dyno UI, which is the UI components, the GraphQL client code that's auto-generated. The UI components are reusable stuff. The OpenAI integration, which we know doesn't work right now. And the RxJS operators, we wrote some custom RxJS operators. Interesting. I don't remember doing that. The backend architecture is Nest.js. We're on 10.3 with an Apollo server. Great, and it's giving me the organization. Module-based architecture, separate modules for different GraphQL features, Dyno GraphQL, Test GraphQL. Service layer, business logic is separated into services, the Dyno source service. So data access through an access is abstracted through a Prisma client. That's correct. Schema is auto-generated. That is correct. The API endpoints are the GraphQL and the Swagger endpoints. And there's a global prefix of /API. Makes sense. We've got the dinosaur query, the all dinosaurs, and then we've got the 3 different mutations. This is all correct and makes sense. So we're using Angular 17 with standalone components. We're using component store for state management. Oh, wow. Really? We're using component store. Man, this is older than I thought. We need to update that. So I thought we were at least using signal store at this point, but because we do have NGRX signals for reactive state, this is a place where I'm going to ask a question of what components are using component store versus what components are using signal store. And provide your confidence level with each. So we're going to leave that there. I want to take a look at this and just figure it out. So we're using Apollo Angular. The styling is Tailwind with Daisy. We're going to need to upgrade that. We're going to have to do a Tailwind upgrade to get Daisy upgraded. It's giving us the code organization. So the routing structure, route redirects to /dinos. Dinos is a home component. It's a list of dinosaurs. Dinos adds dinosaurs. Dinos ID is the details view. And then we've got a home component, an add, edit, and details view. We've got a dinos table. We've got a bunch of components, right? Architecture patterns. Did you see debounce from signal forms? I did see debounce, Ole. And that's definitely going to help a bunch. I think that was a weakness that signal forms had. And I think that's something that we'll be using with this because we are using a search component. And so that we'll definitely be taking a look at that. Okay. Yes, we will definitely be taking a look at debounce. So standalone components using Angular 17's new standalone API, no ng modules and feature code. It's funny to hear that being listed as new, but I think it was new, I think 17 maybe, I don't remember. I think 15 maybe, I don't remember when it was adding. Routes using load component for code splitting. Library-based organization features organized into NX libraries and GraphQL code generation types auto-generated from backend schema. We're even given the database schema from Prisma, which is awesome. The data flow front-end to back-end. Angular components uses Apollo client to send GraphQL queries and mutation. Generated TypeScript types ensure type safety. Back-end to database. GraphQL resolvers call service methods. Service use Prisma. And Prisma handles query building and type safety. Back into front end, GraphQL responses are automatically typed. Apollo client caches results. Development workflow, and it's giving some information about Yarn being used. I forgot I used Yarn for this. I will give you guys, this is my hot take of the day. Out of all the package managers, Yarn is my least favorite, by far. PNPM is probably my most favorite. But PNPM has some issues with compatibility with some stuff. Not a lot of things, but sometimes PNPM can get in its own way. The other thing we need to talk about in a future stream, and I don't want to get too sidetracked here, is I'm using Volta, and Volta is... Volta, well, we can... Volta So actually, that's not what I wanted. I wanted Volta. There we go. I think they're not going to maintain Volta anymore. Which is sad. But we'll dig into this a little bit later. Right now, Volta is not a big deal. We can still use it. There's no problems with using it. Anyway, so the confidence level, overall architecture, 90%. What I need to verify specific state management implementation details, right? Like how the NGRX stores are used, custom RxJS operators. With NX based on README mentioning it's a demo library that shows how to build an application. Perfect. So let's figure out which what components are using component store versus what components are using signal store. And I want to see the state management and how we update that. I don't even want to see that. I want to see, can Antigravity help us migrate all of our packages while it's running? Let's go ahead and let's just take a look at why can't I what am I thinking about? I just drew a blank. Yes, I am using the free anti-gravity. Is it Giga or Ziga or I'm not sure what the Z with how that's pronounced. Feel free to correct me on my American butchery of your name. NCU format group. So let's take a look and just see what NCU picks up as needing to be upgraded. And if we take a look, we're way out of... so these ones aren't too bad. Our graph, our mutative, all of that's not too bad. So we are using mutative. But notice we're 4 versions behind on Angular. We are Nest.js. We're 1 version behind on that. ng-neat. Oh, we're using Spectator. Interesting. Component and component store, signals. Right, we're way behind on signals. NX, we're 5 versions behind on NX. And we're a whole version behind on Zod. And so we're to a point where we need to we need to do some significant upgrading. I'm hearing some stuff. I'm not seeing messages. Let me take a look here. The live chats. Interesting. I'm not sure if I'm missing some messages. Let me just take a really quick look over here. Yeah, it seems like I'm not. I am hearing some notifications. Strange. Okay. Anyway, we're way behind. and we need to do some major upgrades. And this is where it's going to become interesting. To continue answering your questions, Zia, we are using the free version of Antigravity. I don't have a paid version of Gemini. I don't have a paid version of Claude. I don't like everything is free. There's nothing here that I'm paying for. So we may run out of queries in the middle of this. I don't know, but we'll see, right? But let's take a look at what I want to do is say, hey, this project is way out of date. What would be the best way to upgrade? But let's first take a look at a few things here. So there's the architecture. And then I asked what components are using this. So it analyzed a bunch of stuff. State management analysis complete. I've analyzed all components to determine which uses component store versus signal store. Component store observable based. Dynos CRUD store service. The home component is using that, and the Dynos table component is using that. So let's take a look at the Dyno CRUD store service. And the Dyno CRUD store service is using a component store. Oh, wow. And the Dyno CRUD service fascinating. So the edit and Dyno store are using a signal store. And the Dyno CRUD store, oh wow, this is fascinating. So the details component, so the edit Dyno store and the add Dyno store. Where is the edit Dyno store? So there's a signal store feature here. It's using computed and methods. Fascinating. Very fascinating. So within the GraphQL, we created these stores. But we've also got this Dyno CRUD store that is a component store. And we're get table, delete Dyno, toggle sort direction. Oh, this is fascinating. This is like archaeology. And this is the kind of stuff I love doing. I did not realize. I thought that the component store would be vestigial, but if we take a look at our home component, and I wish I could click on it over here, but let's find our home component. So our home component is injecting the Dyno CRUD store service. So we're going to want to fix this. Why doesn't it like host? Oh, that's because we're on an old version of Angular 17. I think it was Angular 20 when the host binding became the preferred method in the fascinating. There's so much here. There's like so much archaeology here and so much digging to look into and stuff that we should clean up for sure. I didn't realize. So in here, we're using component store. Oh, we're even using the suspense operator from JS Cutlery. Wow. We're using the service and then we're using the base dinosaur. Very fascinating. Man, there's a lot here that we need to fix up. I want to see, so it's highly confident that we're using signal store for the details, edit dyno, the add dyno, and the display dyno component. It's also very confident that in the home component, we're using the component store, which is totally correct. And in the dynos table component, we're going to fix that up eventually. So the pattern summary, the list and collection management are done. CRUD operations are done with component store, signal store, detail form management, single entity operations. This project demonstrates both NGRX state management approaches as an educational example. Signal store uses composable features with state, with call state, with errors, while component store follows the traditional observable pattern, select, effect, and update. Fascinating. Let's just say, hey, this project is way out of date. What would be the best way to upgrade? So it's checking the versions, it's pulling the correct versions. Your project is about 2 years old, and there have been significant updates since then. Here's the recommended upgrade strategy. And again, you could go out and find this stuff on the web and look it up, but having the agents just help out, right? NX has excellent migration tooling that handles most dependencies automatically. Check what migrations are available, npx nx migrate latest, or target a specific version. And then install and then run the migrations. It says to remove the migrations. I often check them in. So it handles NX, Angular, Nest, and runs quotes trends. Step-by-step manual upgrade. If you prefer control, minor version bumps first. Update NX incrementally. So from 17 to 18 to 19 to 20. Major framework updates, Angular 17, 18, 19. So from 17 to 19 plus, more signals-based API control flow implement. Input and output, SSR hydration improvements. We aren't using SSR at all. From 17 to 20, Nest from 10 to 11, dependencies to watch. NGRX signals is still evolving, and component store is generally stable. Apollo client server, yep. So commit all changes. We want a clean working directory. That's where we are. Create a branch. Yep. Document current state. Post upgrades. npx nx reset. Yarn install. My recommendation, start with NX automated migration. This will show you a migrations.json file with all planned changes. Review it, then proceed. NX migrations are battle tested. Expected time 2 to 4 hours for the upgrade plus testing. Well, let's see, right? Let's see how correct it is. It might be a while. for this. So this might be like an AMA stream, right? NPX, NX, migrate, latest. I don't think it's at latest. Is it at latest? Nope, it's just latest. And let's see what we get. We know it works. I'm very, very curious where it goes from here. But it was good and I may, like, I don't have that much time to do an upgrade on stream. Or not, sorry, I've got plenty of time to do an upgrade on stream. I may not have that much time to do, well, I know I don't. So I was thinking about doing the upgrade live. I'm realizing that was a dumb idea. We would waste all of our time doing the upgrade. So instead, our starting point will be after this upgrade. However, I'm going to save this chat and go over the chat in the, review the chat. Or, I don't know. I could just skip ahead and do an npm install, but there's still a lot there. And so it's fetching this. Failed to fetch migrations for NX Nest at 2241. Is Nest in here at 2241? It is. So it's failing to get NX Nest. And I don't know why. Or are we, did it change from NX to Narwhal? Was there a change from NX to Narwhal or vice versa? Do you guys remember? And it looks like we're frozen. So we're going to go one by one. NPX, NX, migrate. And let's take a look at the second command. So it's saying to do NX at 18. So we'll try that. And we're going to just basically have to step through this. But we're going to see what the AI can help us with. And this may be longer than I have to stream today. So we may have a couple of evening streams this week where I just jump on and we work through some NX stuff. So yeah, this should be interesting to see. So it's fetching NX. But I don't know if it's going to pick up all the, oh, it is picking up the plugins. Perfect. And to be honest, I intentionally tried the NX migrate because I expected this command to fail. And it's got a lot of confidence that they're robust, but going major version, like jumping 4 major versions, there's a lot of changes that happen. Even to like the NX structure and things like that. So I'm not surprised that we failed. So this is one of the things that we have to watch when we do agent stuff, right? The agent isn't wrong here that NX is robust and there are things that NX does well, but I don't think that it's advice to jump 4 versions at once and just be like, let NX sort it out was a good idea. Um, So here we can see that, hey, we're getting to version 18. We'll be able to get to version 19, and then 20 and 21. The reason I think this is going to take some time is that once we do this upgrade, we're going to run into some issues. I want to give the agent the best chance to help us fix those issues. So when we get everything upgraded, I want to run our end-to-end tests and our unit tests. I think we have decent unit tests and end-to-end tests here. And that kind of stuff is going to help us. It's going to help us pin the project in place. Of course, we're going to serve the project also and do stuff like that, just to make sure that everything works. But yeah, I guess while this is going on, feel free to ask me questions about other stuff too. Right now, we're just going to be staring at upgrade screens for a while. And, there's a lot of stuff we could talk about. So yeah, just feel free to ask me just any of the questions you guys might have that you've been hanging on to. And if you guys don't have questions, I've been thinking about lately. There's this so one of my guilty pleasures is digging into conspiracy theories and just looking at like the mental thought process of conspiracy theories and things like that. And the reason I enjoy it is it's kind of so as you advance in your career, and as you get more leadership, it becomes less about how well you write code and things like that, and more about understanding how people think, and understanding what's important and understanding how to get what's important out of out of others. And so when we do that, it's interesting to look at like how fringe groups think, and it gives deeper insight into into just like human psychology and human group think, right? Flat Earth is fascinating because of that. And there we go. So package JSON has been updated. Migrations have been generated. We'll come back to that. We'll circle back to that because I do have some interesting thoughts here. Make sure that the package JSON changes make sense, then run yarn nx migrate, run migrations. Great, we'll do that. So let's go take a look at our migrations.json. So the changes that it made, Angular is going to version 17.3. NX Angular is going to NX is going to version 18.3. And a bunch of other stuff is changing. So this all looks good. It's interesting that it took Axios from 1.65 down to 1.60. We're going to leave that alone for now. We're going to take a look at our migrations. So this updates the NX wrapper, updates NX JSON to, so there's a bunch of stuff in here that it's going to be doing. There's a lot of migrations here. Updates NX JSON to disable adding plugins when generating projects in an existing NX workspace. So it moves the default base, moves executor options to target defaults. We're updating Cypress. Update the Angular CLI package version to 17.1. Add browser sync as a dev dependency. Add auto prefixer as a dev dependency. Sets some settings. Update the Angular CLI package version to 17.2. Ensure target defaults. And then update the Angular CLI package version to 17.3. And then updates two-way bindings that have an invalid expression to long-form expression instead. So it's adding some Angular updates in here also. That's great. I apologize for the cough. I do have a little bit of a cold that I'm still getting over. So let's go ahead and run yarn. And then we will run migrations. So there we go. Yeah, this, like, Yarn is okay. It gets the job done. And I've worked in organizations that really like Yarn workspaces. But I don't know. If I have to pick, if I'm picking compatibility, I will pick NPM every time. If I'm picking speed, I'll pick PNPM every time. Yarn just kind of, it does compatibility okay, and it does speed okay, but it's not as good as the other two, where they shine, right? NPM for compatibility and unlink that. Yeah. It's called yarn because you're getting tangled up. You said it. I laughed at it. I'm not going to disagree. There's just some weirdness with yarn that I've encountered, and you know, I'm not going to say that it's Yarn's fault and not my fault. Who knows whose fault it is, but reflect metadata. Nest.js has incorrect peer dependency. So we've got some fun conflicting peer dependencies. That's a lot of fun. So I'm getting a whole bunch of errors here, but let's go ahead and run the migrations. Hopefully the migrations work. We're getting a permissions error when it's trying to unlink. It's trying to unlink some files. But it looks like we're getting past the no. node modules NX win. Let's just try npx NX reset and see if that will allow the unlink here. And this is where maybe it's working now. No, we're still getting this. Let's take a look at this file. I don't want to pick an app. Let's do a start dot here. And let's take a look. Node modules NX. Node modules NX. And then it wants NX Win32 this. And it's trying to unlink this file. So let's just delete it and see what happens. Yeah, we'll permanently delete it. So we can see it can't unlink this file. So let's see why the file's locked. Yeah, Angular going from yarn to PNPN. Have you ever worked with forms where all selects, autocompletes, combo boxes, etc., are fetching their options from the server? Feels like quite a hard thing to manage. Oh, look at this. It's anti-gravity. There we go. So it was anti-gravity that was hanging onto the NX file. So let's see if I can. I don't want to delete that. Let's just see if it runs this time. And I have worked with this, Ole, where all selects, autocompletes, combo boxes, etc., are fetching their options from the server. I have done that. It's not an easy task. And you know what? One of the things I can do is we can close anti-gravity for a bit here. It's not often a good user experience to have all of that stuff fetched, right? Because it can slow down page loads, it can slow down forms and things like that. So in that case, you need to start looking heavily at your caching options. So you may want to cache some stuff into your Angular application, right? Like some of your drop downs and auto completes are more difficult, but selects and combo boxes are not necessarily. Auto completes, you're always going to have debounces. You're always going to be going to the server. If the list that you're auto completing on is small enough, you may think about caching that client side. But the other piece to look at is your cache timeouts on your API endpoints. So you can have stuff cached locally in the browser, and give like a 12-hour caching or a 1 hour or a 30-minute, right? However, like a lot of the stuff in those drop downs and don't change very often. So by being less aggressive on your caching policy, you can have a lot of the fetches happen from the browser. That doesn't change the fact that almost every input that that drops down in some way is going to have an asynchronous piece to it. And it gets much more difficult when you've got kind of cascading. So one of the places where this happens a lot, in my past life. Um, let's let's run the migrations while I'm talking. But was at an auto auction. You're like, oh, cascading inputs at an auto auction. Where would that happen? Well, think about this. You've got a year input, right? Tesla wasn't made before a certain year. So somebody types in a Tesla, and now you've got a drop down of makes, right? Certain makes have stopped being made, like Buick has gone out, and Tesla doesn't exist in certain years and things like that. So having like a 1973 Tesla doesn't make sense. And then once you've picked the make, the models can change based on year and things like that, right? Like trying to find like a 2025 Escort, Ford Escort, is not going to work because they stopped making the Ford Escort. I can't remember in what year, right? So you've got these cascading things. And the other thing is that like your models, you can probably have a drop down for. Well, your makes maybe, but there are so many makes that you probably want a filtered select for that. And then your models, like you don't want to have every car model in the world cached in somebody's browser, so you've got dependencies there. And it does slow stuff down, and it is not easy. And this is the place where something like a linked signal becomes huge, right? Because you can have a linked signal across your inputs, and then you can have events that fire, like when the year changes, right? You can change the make, model, trim, and then those can go back to nothing or whatever when that year changes, or you can have other logic based on your linked signal, based on what you need to have happen. Because maybe they originally put in like a 2024 and really their vehicle's a 2023, but their year, make, model, trim is all good. You probably don't want to make them pick it again, right? When they change the year. There's a whole bunch of stuff that just happens with all of this. This is where I think like signals and linked signals, and then having a state management piece that can have those pieces in memory. Like you could potentially have all makes in memory. That's not a problem. And then allow them to filter it based on logic. That's not a problem. And so your type ahead is much more responsive. It really comes down to what you're optimizing for and what, how much memory you think you can get away with and things like that. First time you open select, then it starts to fetch. Then you have to have something like infinite scroll or patch. Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? Like at some point, a select probably needs to become something like an autocomplete or a combo box, because you don't want to have somebody like, think about whenever you worked on like government forms and they've listed like a million things and you're scrolling way to the bottom to find something, right? Material CDK and pagination, and that's Angular ARIA has some nice tools too. Sometimes you need multi-selects and you need to restore data, for example, when you only save the IDs. Exactly, Ola. And like, there's so much that can go wrong here. And this is why I like stores. Because for the select, you bind the options to the computed value from the store that are your options. For the values, you can store the values as IDs, but you can have the selected values bound to a computed value that picks the appropriate thing, right? And so it becomes much better because the store handles all of this. And where people really get into trouble with forms and with stores, and it looks like this all ran correctly. But yeah, where people really get into trouble is if you try to make your form your source of truth, you can wind up with circular things going on that makes you start having to add flags of user selected or filling from data, or right, like all these stupid flags. You don't need that with a store. The store can handle all of this circular referencing and stuff by itself, and it doesn't, like when you set values in the store, you're just setting values. It doesn't matter if it came from the database or wherever. And you can fire off service requests. You can have effects happen and things like that. And that's where state management and state machines, right? I tend to prefer signal stores. And that's why I'm calling them stores, but really it's a state management solution. You want a reactive state management solution that's driving your UI. It's going to simplify things so much. Instead of trying to launch events in onChanged from your UI, having it fetch data, or right, like that gets to be very, very messy. But your store can handle that much better in a much cleaner way. And the other thing is that it's composable and shareable, right? It's much, much more difficult to share the logic from form to form. Yeah. Spartan created some nice combo boxes, but still there are so many details. And I totally agree with you, Ole. And that, like, the problem that we have in a lot of what we do as engineers and developers and architects and, you know, all of our various roles, the biggest problem we have is the constant enemy of time. Time is our biggest enemy in almost everything we do. And a lot of decisions are made poorly because of time constraints, right? Whether it's we're rushing to beat a competitor to market, whether it's our sprints are just too aggressive, whether it's we're bad at estimating, right? There's so many times when time just becomes our enemy. And it can become very, very frustrating and very, very challenging. And you're hitting on, like, this is another place where your value to the company is much bigger than the LLMs. Solving these problems with LLMs becomes very, very ugly. LLMs still don't do forms well. And so, yeah, I agree with you. You're describing perfectly a lot of the problems that we run into. Oh, look at that. I reached my get Kraken weekly limit. Oh no. Upgraded to NX. NX at 18.3.5. This is where my commit messages become less interesting. So there's our upgrade. Let's see what we broke. So npx nx, we'll run a reset just to make sure we reset everything. Then we're going to npx nx serve our Angular. Oh, we want to make sure that we're serving this first. So we're going to serve our Dynos API. So there we go. This is up and going. So now we're going to go ahead and serve our Dynos. We can see it's all working because it is appropriately asking for stuff. Great. And we're getting our chunks and our sizes. I remember we spent a bunch of time working on our sizes, our chunk sizes too. There was a lot that went on here. Just go ahead and refresh this. Let's bring up the console. And let's delete this and we'll go ahead and refresh. Great. It looks like things are working okay. Let's go ahead and just, we'll edit Tyrannosaurus. And you know what? We decided we don't like T-Rex with feathers. And, you know, some people say it had feathers, but it isn't a giant chicken, right? Because, you know, we have to make sure that we make people angry with everything we do. So some people say it had feathers, but it isn't a giant chicken. Perfect. So if we refresh, so everything appears to be working in this upgrade, which is great. Let's go ahead and kill this. And we will end this. Great. So the other thing we can do is npx nx run many. And we're going to target equals lint and test. So now we're running our linting and our testing at the same time. So we've got some linting errors. Values never used. These are fine. Empty method, register on change, register on touched. Great. Those are all fine. We'll worry about them later. So we do definitely have a bunch of linting issues. Oh. It's picking up some circular dependencies. Angular dynos to GraphQL to OpenAI to dynos to, we've got a circular dependency going on. That's not good. And we've got 3 failing test suites. 7 out of 9 failed. Let's go ahead and break out of this. And I just want to run target equals test. Because I want to see what test failings we've got. But while this is running, Ola, to get back to your point, when we're putting together user interfaces, we need to make sure that we are aware of our what our users need. No provider for HTTP clients. Okay, so that one's failing. So our OpenAI service doesn't have an injector for the HTTP client. So let's go ahead and pull that up. So let's pull up Antigravity. And this is the OpenAI service. So, nope. OpenAI service. Come on. Okay, so we'll close this. Describe OpenAI service. Man, I don't even remember. I think I can go in here and do providers. You know what? Let's go here. And I want to keep that chat around, but how do I add the HTTP testing client to this file? because I don't remember how to do it. It's been so long since I've written a test this way. So you add the HTTP testing module, HTTP mock. Oh, this is hideous. We don't want this. I'm good with this one. We're going to reject this. We will accept this, and we're going to reject this one. Which means we don't need this. And let's see if that fixes our test. So, only one succeeded. Let's go ahead and see if this runs. So the RxJS operators, hey, that one worked. Oh, we've already got 2 failing tests. This tells me that these tests never ran. Dynos CRUD service should be created. The constructor is not compatible with Angular dependency injection because its dependency at index 0 of the parameter list is invalid components. This can happen is the dependency type is a primitive like a string. So we did fix that one. Let's run this one. npx, and we'll run this one, and we'll fix this one up. It looks like our tests are kind of crap. Because if we look at this test, Dynos CRUD store service should be injected. R3 injected. Dynos CRUD store service. No provider for Dynos CRUD store service. Great. So let's bring up the Dynos CRUD store service. I don't know why that one works. Dyno CRUD store service. Want the test. What providers do we have in this one? We don't have any providers here. Oh, we do. We've got all these GraphQL stuff that we're injecting. We'll fix these up later. I'm making an executive call here. It worked when we ran it. That's good enough. we'll get tests in place later. Just go ahead and commit this. I don't want to spend too much time. Yeah. Fixed injector error in test. I'm being lazy, but I do want to get through this. So Ole asks, what are Zod benefits to use with forms? Because we do have runtime validators in the forms. And this is a good question. This was something we talked about with the signal forms experiment, right? The benefits to Zod validators become apparent when you start using Zod outside of the forms. If you're only ever going to use validators in the forms, my suggestion is don't bother with Zod validators. They're going to be a lot more NX at 19. They're going to be a lot more work than you're going to benefit from, right? Because you're going to have to learn Zod. You're going to have to create the Zod parsers. Then you're going to have to link the Zod parsers in the Angular validations, right? And there's a bunch of stuff that you have to do. That's all overhead as far as I'm concerned if you're only ever going to use the validators in your form parsers. However, if you start using the Zod validators to start validating other things like API inputs or API outputs, or maybe you parse stuff, maybe you allow the user to save to local storage like we did, and you want to validate that the local storage comes back properly. Suddenly the Zod parsers become way more interesting, right? Because now they're not just being used to validate the form. Now you can use them to validate inputs and outputs. Now you can use them to help type difficult parts of your code. That's the other thing that Zod gives you, is it gives you strongly typed objects. So you can feed a JSON object into Zod, and then TypeScript can infer the types better. That's where Zod shines over runtime validations. Again, my suggestion is, if you're only ever going to be doing runtime form validations, use the Angular validators. They're already better linked. If you go take a look at the signal forms, you'll see that we had to do some stuff with min and max. Well, that's already done with Angular, with the Angular validators. And there are other like weird things that you have to do if you start introducing a parser like Zod, right? There are other parsers out there similar to Zod, but Zod is really, really beneficial. And especially if you start tying AI, LLMs into your stuff, right? Because we all know that LLMs hallucinate, and you could give the LLM the best JSON structure ever, and it's going to come back with some mangled JSON structure. How do we validate that? How do we know, right? If you just parse the JSON, you may miss it, and it may introduce subtle bugs into your runtime code, right? Zod becomes a powerful tool for doing those runtime checks that also just so happens to be a powerful tool that can be linked to your signal forms. So hopefully that answers your question, Ole. But that's the way I look at like any of the open spec parsers and Angular signal forms. I think it's amazing that Angular added those parsers, and you should use them if all you're ever going to do is form validation. Yeah. Thanks for the questions, by the way. These are well thought out, good questions. But I think the goal will be to get to a good place for the stream on Friday, and it's probably going to take a couple of streams. Thanks. There is a pretty solid docs about. Yeah, I agree. The docs for signal forms are amazing. And there's also a lot of good content out there, right? I have to give a shout out to a lot of my content creators out there. And, you know, Deborah Kurata is out there doing what Deborah Kurata does best, and she's teaching people how to use Angular. Her content's amazing. You should go check it out. I like the model design section. I agree with you there. The model design section is really, really good. And we can probably take a look at that here. Where are my Angular stuff? That's Angular Aria, the DOM sanitizer. And I've got Aria up in a couple of places. Custom controls. So this is the piece that that Ole is talking about for everybody else, right? If you haven't been here, this model design section. Yep. Translating between. So this is a specific one that he's calling out as being new. Domain model to form model. So yeah, using linked signals. So you can see this domain model is an input, and your domain model is a model created. These are the models that you're creating to do the validation, right? No, it's not. No, it's not. This is just the model itself. These could be signal store. These could be your own signal object. These could be a standard object, whatever. And then we're using linked signals to validate stuff. And like I said before, right, like computations might be important because in the example that we were talking about before with linked inputs, you know, maybe the person accidentally typed 2023, you know, maybe they typed like a 2023 Cadillac Escalade, right? When really they've got a 2024. Well, if they type 2024, you don't want to wipe out Cadillac and Escalade. And that's where these linked signals and computation models will help with that. Because if a 2024 Cadillac Escalade exists, maybe we don't want to wipe that out. And it really comes down to user experience and what we're trying to provide for the user. So yeah, excellent call outs there, Ole. So it looks like everything's gone mostly according to plan. Well, we'll say mostly because we haven't tested it yet. Let's go take a look at what we got. So our migrations added updates the default workspace data directory to the NX workspace data directory. And then set project name, and then update this. So this all seems to be good. Oh, there's a lot more here. So doing some migrations on the configs, upgrading the Angular CLI version to 18. And then we're installing the TypeScript ESLint utils package. And then we're upgrading the CLI to be 18.1. And then we upgrade the CLI to 18.2. And then setting the target defaults. Oh, and in 18, they changed the HTTP modules. So there's going to be a bunch of changes going on here. This will be a good one. So we're definitely going to want to see that. So we're going to run our yarn. And then once we run our yarn, we're going to run the migrations also. But this should be interesting to see what the migrations change for us, because from 17 to 18 was a big change. From 18 to 19 was a big change. From 19 to 20 was a big change. And from 20 to 21, there are some big changes. So we've got a bunch of big changes going on. We've got about a half hour. We've made it through one version. There will be some extra streams this week. Okay. So our incompatible node module, it wants greater than 22. If we look at Volta list, our node is at 2010. So let's Volta pin node at 22. And that's going to fix this issue. And so now we should be able to go with our yarn, and that should fix this issue. And I don't want to go to yarn 4. So I'm not sure if yarn will stop working here eventually. We may have to convert from yarn to PNPM or something. I don't even remember why I chose yarn for this. One thing that's annoying with all these different package managers is the temporary workspace that's going to be computed and eaten up by all of this. That's going to be fairly annoying. But to get back to what Ole was saying, the signals form documentation just gives a great overview of what they were trying to do. And then how to design your models to work with stuff. And, you know, initializing all fields. Keeping them focused. There's a lot of good stuff in here just to help you. And then even managing like the field state, right? Like valid, invalid. There's so much good stuff in here. So there we go. Our yarn installed after we fix that. So let's run our migrations and hope that everything works. Yeah, I highly recommend anybody who's interested in signal forms, just get in and read the stuff that the Angular team put together. They put together a lot of really good stuff. Oh, that's interesting. So it's running it with the ignore scripts. Then we've got a ton of migrations that it's running. So the invalid two-way bindings that have invalid expressions. This will be fascinating to see what we get caught out with in all of these different upgrades. It's just crazy how many extra packages we keep picking up here. So many. Old versions of tar are not supported and contain widely publicized security vulnerabilities, which have been fixed. In current version, please update. Support for old versions may be purchased at an exorbitant rate. Contacting this. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. So our workspace is up to date. Let's go ahead and do something that I never suggest, but we're just going to commit. So no extra semi and no extra semi. And then, so it's adding some TypeScript rules. Added some stuff to our get ignore. Added some stuff to our prettier ignore. There's our migrations. Our package, we're just going to say that we upgraded to NX 19.8.9. So upgrade to NX at 19.8.9. We're going to commit that. And that's the part that I don't recommend you do in your day-to-day stuff. It's not a good idea, especially like at your job. It's a good way to cause problems and extra work for other people. Instead, you should do the validation steps we're going to do now first, and then do the commits. Let's run our NX reset just to make sure we've reset everything, and then we're going to do our npx NX serve. Probably can't stop anything because this is running. Yep, there it goes. We'll just run it again to make sure everything's okay. So it's stopping the daemon. There we go. So we'll go ahead and get that running, and get just npx NX serve Angular dynos. And in the future, we can look at dependencies and stuff, because there's a way to tell NX. I think it started, I don't remember which version it started with. Invalid self-closing element in HTML file. Interesting. We may have an issue. Let's take a look. Localhost 4200. So it's not serving, it's building the files, but it's not serving the files. Application bundle generation failed. Polyfill for this in the future, this functionality will be removed. Please add this polyfill in the polyfill section of your Angular JSON instead. But it's saying that we've got an invalid self-closing element, the dyno root. So something's not building correctly here, even though it's saying that it built it correctly. it built correct. It builded correctly. So the dyno root is an invalid self-closing element. Um, um, let's bring up anti-gravity. And let's bring up our dyno root. So dyno dash root. I think it's just our dyno component. This is our dynos UI. Dynos GraphQL. Angular, Gemini. So in our Angular dynos, our dynos UI, is our index.ts. No, that's not the file I'm looking for. Where is my root component? You know what? The fastest way to find it is just going to be to search for it. Dynos dash root. Dyno dash root. So I do have it in the index HTML, but here in this Angular component, see, the problem is that it's saying that it's an invalid closing tag. And I'm not sure why we're getting that. And there's self-closing tag. It's going to give me that I'm going to have an invalid element. Oh no, it doesn't. I am not sure. So there's our test dyno. I'm really not sure why. Well, the other thing is we're way zoomed in on this. 133 is probably big enough. But I'm not sure why it had a problem with that. Because Angular should allow self-closing tags. But maybe it's a bug that will work itself out. So right now, things seem to be working. fixed self-closing tag error. And we'll commit this, and then we'll push it. The other thing that's interesting, and we'll worry about this later, but so the Angular localize init was added automatically. And I'm not sure. So the Angular polyfills, and it wants us to add that to our Angular JSON. I don't know that we want to do that because I'm not sure if it's been removed in later versions. But let's keep going. NX migrate. And we're going to migrate to NX20. And I think we've got to make it to NX22, and then we can start migrating all of our Angular stuff also. And at that point, we'll be in a good state. I think that's where we'll try to end the stream. I don't know. We'll see how long this takes. I do need to end here in a little bit. But it would be good to get as much done as possible. But we can also take a look tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, as needed. When we end the stream, I'll let you guys know if we're going to be doing a stream tomorrow. I'll also put it up on Twitter and LinkedIn, just so people can be aware. I'll probably do it at like 6 p.m. Mountain, which I know is going to be super late for our European and like Indian and Asian people. But I've got to do it after work. So need to pay the bills. It has been nice. So I was able to prove to my ISP that they were renewing my DHCP too much. And once I was able to prove that to them, then I was able to work out, get onto a plan where my DHCP, I think my DHCP renews every 24 hours now. In the past, like I was able to prove that my DHCP was set to renew every 90 minutes, but they were sometimes renewing it within like 45 to 50 minutes. And for people out there, yeah, tomorrow is Monday. I'm sorry I reminded you of that, Ole. Hopefully you can forgive me for that one. But yeah, for people who maybe don't know what DHCP is, DHCP is it's the dynamic protocol that gives you the IP address for your public router interface. So when your ISP gives you a router that gives you the Wi-Fi and stuff, internally you're probably using DHCP to provide IP addresses to all of the stuff that you're doing wireless or through, maybe you're running Ethernet. I run Ethernet to a couple of things that I don't want to rely on the Wi-Fi for. And so you're using DHCP to supply IP addresses to those, but your ISP is using DHCP to give you an IP address also. They're banking on the fact that not everybody's going to be online all the time, and so they've got a pool of IP addresses that they give out. And if that IP address changes in the middle of doing something like streaming, well, guess what? Your stream goes down because the service that you're using for streaming is like, I don't know who you are. Why are you sending me this information? And then you have to re-authenticate. And guess what? Your stream just crashed midstream. And that was happening quite a bit. And it took a little bit of work to convince them as to what was going on. But once I was able to do that, it looks like we've been fairly stable today. Um, I'm not showing packet degradation. Yeah, my notifications are mostly empty. So hopefully it was a much better experience than it has been for the past couple of weeks. I appreciate everybody putting up with kind of the weirdness that's been going on. But hey, we're finally hitting Angular 19. So there we go. That all worked. Let's go ahead and run yarn. And then we'll run the migrations. And then we'll serve it and see what happens. I do remember a while ago that there was this issue where self-closing tags in the index file caused an error. And maybe it's just me trying, like, our human brains are so good at pattern recognition that maybe it's just me like, oh yeah, you totally remember that, dude. And I don't really remember it. It's just me going, yeah, I totally remember something like this. Who knows? We'll try putting it back to a self-closing tag once we get everything upgraded. And maybe we'll have Antigravity try to help us troubleshoot it, right? And figure out what the problem could be. So I may have to end soon. I do. I picked up a little bit of flu. I think a little bit. I picked up the flu. You can't pick up a little bit of flu. I picked up the flu Friday night, or at least that's when it really hit me. And I spent yesterday recovering of the symptoms that I was having right now. So luckily next week is a work from home week and I don't have to worry about trying to catch a train or something. And you know, I'll be able to work from home and be able to do my streaming and stuff. So hopefully recovery goes well. Seems to be. I'm just making stuff up as I go. Hopefully recovery goes well. It's not going poorly. Let's put it that way. I seem to be recovering just fine. So, there we go. So yarn finished. Let's run our migrations. Thank you, Ole. I appreciate that. It's just one of the fascinating things about RTO for me. And this was something that I hadn't thought about in a really long time. But you work with those people who will tell you that they're never sick, right? I'm never sick. I've never been sick. And they're hacking up a lung on top of you while they're telling you that, right? You know, they're the people that are spreading disease through the. I don't know. I need to be nice about it, but it is frustrating to have people who, you know, I'm never sick. If I'm sick, I'm going to stay home. I don't want to be spreading my illness. Oh, we got a bunch of updates here. So we definitely got a bunch of updates here. So a bunch of files updated. I don't know. I'm being grumpy because I'm sick. And I recognize I'm sick and I wouldn't take my sickness into the office. And it bothers me, the people who like to brag about never being sick. Um, don't be that person. Take your sick days. Get healthy. Don't make other people sick. Um, you never know what kind of home people are going to, and they may have people with compromised immune systems, and going into the office is probably very scary for them. Um, so um, my advice there is don't make it scarier for them than it has to be. Um, but then there's the train. Um, there are people on the train who don't have the luxury that I do of working from home and things like that, and missing a shift for them is much more impactful. And so that's another place. I've been talking to my wife, and as much as I don't want to do it in the state of Utah, it has a potential to cause some fun issues for me. I may have to start wearing a mask on the train, um, and just to help myself stay healthier, because I recognize there are people on the train who can't. They have to be there, um, and so um, yeah, I just who knows what I'm saying. I'm just talking right now. I'm just talking. So my T-Rex, you know what? We've been convinced our T-Rex has feathers, um, and um, imagine those wings back in the day, right? Because if T-Rex has feathers, we're going to call it a giant chicken. Can you imagine the chicken wings from a T-Rex? Um, and let's go ahead and test out. We can add a test, dino, a test description, and it will be 5. And we'll try and save that. Oh no, it needs to have weight. Let's give it 6 kilogram weight. Perfect. And let's delete our test dino. We've got some ugliness going on. We're going to need to figure that out, but we'll figure that out later. But everything seems to be working okay, which means it's time to ship it. One thing I do want to do is take a look at our home component and our text area component. So let's pull that up in Antigravity. And let's pull up our home component. Because it is telling us that, hey, we're not using the JSON pipe. So let's pull that out of here. And imports is only valid in a component that is standalone. So one of the things that's interesting here is that it's not picking up our it's not picking up our lint rules. We need to update those. That's one of the things that we haven't updated. But we don't need to go through quite as many we don't need to go through quite as many what do we want to we don't need to go through quite as many updates as we do to get to Angular 21 and X22. Oh, we need to do the text area component also. It's importing ngIf. Text area component is importing ngIf. So we're going to pull that out of here. And these errors, right, are where is that coming from? because it's old, right? And this form control, these are all old errors, and we need to fix them up. So this upgrades us. So our jest got changed. Our migrations, NX upgraded. They changed some stuff. Package JSON. Our NX is now at 20.8.4. So upgraded to NX at 20.8.4. Commit that and push it. And then our Cypress configs were changed, but here, so all these standalone that we had in place were removed. And because they were removed, our lint rules didn't catch up, right? So we can see all of these standalone selectors. And I'm pointing with my finger because you guys can obviously see me pointing with my finger. So we can see all of these standalone rules have been changed. It's just basically pulling them out. And yarn lock. So that's all good. We'll push all of this. And it's time to move on to npx, nx migrate, nx at 21. And I think the latest nx is 22. One thing that's crazy here is our main is small, but our polyfills and styles are fairly large. But then most of our stuff is lazy loaded chunks. We spent a ton of time getting our main.js to under 10K. And really there are only two pieces that have to be served. So there's 11K of JS that's served. The polyfills is obviously large and our styles is fairly large. We can probably help shrink the polyfills down by better targeting our browsers. So if we target ES next, it's going to pull a lot of polyfills out of here. Our styles aren't going to get much smaller because they're daisy. We could use something to tree shake our styles, but let's be honest, our Angular main page fits into less than a lot of other applications. I've seen main.js for applications that are less complicated than what we're doing take up like a meg, right? So this being able to shrink it as much as we have is fairly impressive. And I'm very, very happy with where we are here. We'll do this last one. We could probably do the last two. And then we'll stop there. There's a couple of other things that we'll need to take a look at. But I think if we get to the latest version of NX, then we'll be good. In Daisy, you can include only the components you need. Really? I need to take a look at that because that would be. Oh, are you saying that actually makes sense? In the load, you can say I'm only going to use like inputs and buttons. Yep. That makes sense, and we could probably do that to even shrink our stuff down. Thank you for that, Ole. You know what would be interesting is I would love to get Antigravity to give me that same information, Ole, um, and make the changes itself. I'm curious if I can get it to do it. So that's something else we can take a look at. Can we get Antigravity to make some suggestions like that? Because it would be fascinating to see how what it comes up with. The other thing, I don't know. I just want to see what anti-gravity can do. We'll probably move off of the anti-gravity and back to WebStorm here shortly. Um, and we might start using Junie to see if Junie works well with like Claude and stuff like that. Um, I did I did see this week as I was reading stuff that a lot of people are calling out the fact that Microsoft has moved largely away from Copilot and is using Claude in almost all of its stuff. Even in like its spreadsheets and things like that, Claude is beating Copilot. Um, and a lot of people are saying Copilot's kind of becoming the Netscape navigator of LLMs, where it was like the most used thing for a long time. And then the new kids on the block basically were able to beat it because it just it didn't keep up, right? It was resting on its laurels or who knows what. Um, but it was a fascinating article about Microsoft and Copilot and just LLMs. There was another interesting article I was reading this morning as I was preparing for the stream, talking about LLMs and how AI is sitting on a large bubble. And one of the key indicators of bubbles is there are large tech companies that are paying other large tech companies that are paying other large tech companies that are paying the original tech company. So you've basically got this circle of revenue where no real value or profit is being generated, but they're just basically circling revenue to look like revenue is coming in because LLMs aren't generating necessarily the amount that they need to be generating. Um, and because of that, they're saying, we're sitting on a bubble, which is a fascinating thought. And it's something I need to think about. This is interesting. So NX Module Federation has a dependency on React. I'm not even sure. NX Angular has that dependency on Module Federation. Data prefetch has a it's funny to see React in my Angular compiler or my Yarn upgrades. So it'll be interesting to see how this project works once we get everything in place. I do want to see if anti-gravity can make the upgrade in Tailwind. The Tailwind stuff is fascinating to me. What's fascinating to me is Tailwind basically came out and said AI killed our paid business model. LLMs did, and so they can't keep maintaining Tailwind. That's another piece that I think we should take a look at as a group and just see think about that and what are the implications, right? Because I've used Tailwind and Daisy forever. Obviously for at least 2 years, probably longer than that. And the implications of not being able to use Tailwind and Daisy are fairly significant. And like, what are the options? I do know, I think Google is dumping money into Tailwind to help Tailwind survive. I think that's what I read. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what the article said that was talking about the death of Tailwind, and Tailwind talking about why they felt they failed. Um, but yeah, it's a fascinating thought, that LLMs could destroy the business model that a lot of these open source companies were using to be able to generate the revenue to produce high quality products. Um, and if we lose a high quality product like Tailwind and Daisy, what is the replacement? I don't think LLMs generating CSS is the replacement. Maybe in a year or two, that statement will be hilariously funny and out of date. Um, but right now, I don't know what is available, and it'll be fascinating to see the direction that we wind up going. Um, yeah, I've never used inject flags, and in fact, I'd have to go look up to see what it does. Um, oh, there's the control flow migration. I'm looking forward to seeing what. I can't believe I was using. Um, I can't believe I was using something other than control flow. That probably shows you how old this project is, that it had ng ifs and stuff like that. Um, so import of document from Angular Common to Angular Core. Replaces usage of deprecated router.get current navigation with router.current navigation signal. And it looks like there were some things that were changed here. So the TS config was changed. Um, but I think NX22 is the last. We'll use NCU to just see how out of date we are on everything. Um, okay, so we'll do our npx nx reset. I do want to take a look at what was changed. 27 files were changed. We're going to stage all of this. So our git ignore, they added some stuff. Migrations, we already ran those. nx.json. Our package.json. So we upgraded to NX at 21.6.9. So we'll commit that and push. So our project.json changed. We don't have any tags, but it added a jest config in it, or added a TS config. Our add button components. We no longer import the common. Oh, this is going to make things smaller. This is going to make things a lot smaller. Removing that common module from everything. Fascinating. I wonder if we broke anything removing all those common modules. Very fascinating. Well, there's no going back because I did what you shouldn't do. So let's just make sure that we don't have anything serious to change. If we don't, I'll finish up the last migration. If we do, I'm going to call it here. So it looks like that all is serving properly. So let's run that one. So it's a good sign. So there we go. Again, we're gonna just change the has feathers and another line that you will probably never read. So there we go. That's all there. We can add test. Actually, you know what? Let's just make sure all of our parsing works. Oh, I forgot about that hideous thing we added. Test, test, test. 1, 2. Save. There's test. We can delete test. Great. Things are looking good. So that upgrade went smoothly. npx nx migrates. Did we just do 20 or did we do 21? That was 21. So we're on 22. I thought we were on 22, but I was like, wait, what's going on? So there's 22. So this should be the last update. And while that's running, let's kill this. And let's just do an NCU with a format group here. Let's just see where we are, right? So we've got the GraphQL code gen that needs to be updated. Nest.js schematics can be updated. Auto prefixer can be updated. RxJS can be updated. That's crazy. I haven't seen an RxJS update in a long time. Axios, probably ESLint, GraphQL, mutative, prettier. Like the thing that, I don't know. Well, so Angular can go to version 21. Apollo can go to 4. GraphQL code gen can go to version 6. JS Cutlery, we might take that out. I don't know. Apollo, Nest.js Apollo. I'm not going to mess with Nest.js. I'm going to let NX handle that. Right, NX/Nest, that should handle that, I hope. If not, maybe we'll, but we've got NGRX component hasn't been updated. Component store hasn't been updated. So NGRX signals, so there's a bunch of stuff here that we probably need to update. NX, we need to update. Daisy, Tailwind, Zod, and prettier plugin Tailwind CSS. Organized imports are there. Yeah. So there's still a bit to be updated. Even after we finish this, The NGRX one, I do want to update, but we'll do that one tomorrow. We'll call this the end. I'm about a half hour over. Um, yeah, just sitting here thinking, and that's incredibly boring to people watching, right? Who knows? Maybe most of what I do is boring. I don't know. But just me sitting here staring at a screen is not good content. Um, but I'm very, very curious to see. Um, actually, after we get this all upgraded, um, let's let anti-gravity. Let's let anti-gravity just take a look and be like, hey, um, we upgraded NX and Angular. A lot of other stuff is out of date. Um, what are the migrations that should be run, and what is your confidence on those migrations? Um, and I think we'll end the stream with that and come back to that tomorrow. So we'll be streaming tomorrow, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. I'll put it up on Twitter and LinkedIn. Um, yeah, I am excited about tomorrow. So, um, you know, lately a lot of my job has been governance related, making sure that people are following the rules and stuff. Um, Tomorrow I have been redirected a little bit for a while, and I'm going to actually get into the code again. And I'm looking forward to it. Um, I'm looking forward to being able to come in and just help teams that are struggling a little bit to be able to get back on track and get back, to where they need to be. Um, so I'm looking forward to that a lot. Um, and it looks like we are going to the Angular 21. So one thing I want to do is let's Volta pin node at 24. So that we're running the latest version of Node in this project. And then we're going to run yarn here. Then we're going to run the migrations. The thing that bugs me, and like there's so many warnings here. And the tough thing about all of these warnings is they become white noise. And so there might be good warnings here. Like CVEs are not issued for URL.parse. Like that's a big deal. CVEs are like error, like known exploits. I can't remember what CV stands for, but it's basically known exploits in the wild. So not having CVEs for something could be a big deal. You look at like the issue that React had with their server stuff, and then the latest one that Angular had, where people could gain server access, root server access, and I'm often curious about like how many of these warnings can contribute to that. Like I don't know. I haven't really dug into like the post-mortem on the React server piece, and what was the actual issue and how it was resolved. But I always worry about um, when we get into stuff like this um, where we've just got like all of these installs that have tons and tons and tons of warnings. And or it's just like, oh yeah, I see that all the time. I'm just going to ignore it. Um, and that's another place where I wonder, getting LLMs to parse through just these walls of warnings, and then go out versus known package CVEs and things like that, and be like, hey, you should probably take a look at this. I think stuff like that would be super helpful for people who are maintaining projects and things like that. Um, and just different things like that, where as humans we become very, very good at ignoring things. um, LLMs don't care, right? We feed an LLM a ton of text and it spits back, hey, you should probably care about this. We do it all the time. um, and I'm very, very curious about just what would we find in our npm installs or our yarn installs, or whatever, or even just like our Angular serves, right? What would we find in there that we're just ignoring? And what benefits can an LLM provide? An agent, like, an interesting flow that I've been thinking about is, what if you could set up an agent to watch your like your logs, maybe your Splunk logs from production, whatever they are, your logs, and look for common issues in logs. And once it finds those common issues, it can issue PRs based on known fixes. Um, and then those PRs can be looked at by a human, maybe modified by a human to make them better. Um, but um, like a workflow like that, that's just constantly scanning your logs for errors, and then issuing PRs against the errors that it's finding in your server logs, um, would save a ton of time. And those server logs are so huge that most of the time people don't even look at them until there's an issue, and then we're spending all this time grepping server logs and looking for the error that we're looking for. Um, but we aren't being um, proactive, or we're very much reactive to what's going on. And like, this happens at all businesses. You have these giant logs, and you build these dashboards that are like, oh, we've got this many errors in production, and maybe if it jumps from like 30,000 to 50,000, you're like, oh no, something happened. What happened, right? But most companies aren't looking at those logs unless something happens out of the normal. And then if something happens out of the normal, and then we're determined, oh, we don't want to fix that, well, the new normal is now, oh yeah, you've got 50,000 server logs errors per day, versus the 30,000 you used to have. And that's just the normal, right? And then the next time we hit 100,000 server logs, like, oh no, what's going on? We go look, maybe we fix it, maybe we don't. But that just becomes a new normal. But what if we had just an LLM that was constantly watching Splunk and just issuing PRs? It'd be able to hopefully fix up those, and keep that stuff under control, keep your keep your dashboards and stuff from growing. And I do want to be very, very specific here. I'm not calling out any specific company. This is something that I see across the board at all companies. Um, every company has a dashboard of shame, that just keeps getting more and more shameful, um, and that's across the board at every company I've ever worked at. Um, Actually, I can't say anything about my current company because I don't work day to day in that stuff. So I don't know if there's a dashboard of shame like I'm explaining, right? But in all of my past companies, there's always been that dashboard of shame that's got, server errors, or, customer errors, or, all, JavaScript errors or all that stuff, right? That's all on this dashboard that everybody can see and everybody ignores unless something significant changes. So I think, like, as I look at agentic flows and as I look at AIs and LLMs, where I think they're going to get better is in those kinds of flows, and where they're going to be indispensable, and where companies are going to set themselves apart from the rest of the pack. One of the things that kind of scares me, and I was talking about this with somebody earlier this week, was LLMs take context from your code base, right? And the thing we were talking about was somebody was encountering nested subscribes in a fairly significant code base. We can track down people and tell them not to use nested subscribes. And they'll learn not to do that. LLMs are going to take context. It's much more difficult to get an LLM to break bad habits than it is to get, say, an engineer that we sit down with and we educate and get them to break their bad habits, right? And the problem we've got is that LLMs are very, very confident in what they say. That confidence is very, very high in most of their statements. That's why I like to ask an LLM to include its confidence in the statements that it's making, because it may make statements where it sounds very confident, and then it will add like a 30% confidence to the end of that line, and it's like, oh, that significantly weakens what was just said by the LLM. That's an interesting issue that just occurred to me as I was having this discussion with this person, and I don't know how we resolve that or get around that, right? I mean, we can add like RAG specs, or we can add agent info and stuff like that, but if the agent takes the info from the agent info first, and then it uses the code context second, well, the code context probably has higher priority and more recency, so it's more likely to generate bad code. And that's where I'm not, like, this whole stream is about AI, right? I don't want anybody here to think that, oh, I'm anti-AI, or I'm saying you shouldn't use AI. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, right now, the current state of AI is we have to be, as engineers, our value is not so much. Oh, I actually really hate this change. It took out all of my white space, and that's it. Like, what the hell, dude? Like, I use that because I'm a human and I read this. I understand that there are humans out there that don't like white space, but I'm not one of them. Anyway, I decided to rant at the at the changes made, but for right now, I think the truly powerful AI, and I think you should be using AI. Oh, we've got module preserve. That's an interesting choice. And we're targeting ES 2016 here. Oh, wait. Never mind. So this is our TS config, and our TS config here is targeting ES 2022. And our module is set to preserve. That's fine. We may have to mess with that a bit just to get our bundling back. We'll have to see how our bundles come out. But like the testing TS configs, I think they have to be set on 2016, because it relies on stuff from 2016. And that's why our targets are 2016 there. I may set all the other tsconfig targets to be, instead of ES22 to be ES next. That will probably make our polyfills much smaller because we're targeting much more modern browser functionality. Well, that's fascinating. What does this change? Provide zone change. Oh, you did. Oh no, we're not zoneless. We need to be zoneless. So we're gonna have to fix that too. Uh, I haven't written something that has zone. Oh man, yeah, we're gonna have to fix that too. Um, Fascinating. That one's a little bit visceral for me. I'm not happy about that one. I'm really not happy about all of this, but I'm too lazy to do anything about it. Um, oh, I already committed it anyway before I even looked at it. That's why you shouldn't commit before you look at stuff. Um, but yeah, let's see if this stuff serves. Oh, it's fascinating. I didn't even realize we were not running the zoneless. That's hilarious. Um, so we'll serve the API here. And serve Angular dynos here. And I'm very curious to see so if you look at our bundles, our styles got a little bit bigger. Fine, whatever. Our polyfills is now 95 bytes. So we lost 80K of polyfills just by going to Angular 21 and the browsers that we're targeting. That means that our entire initial chunk, including styles and JavaScript, is under 100K. Our styles are 80K. We're serving, we'll call it 11K of JavaScript for our initial page render. Right? We're 93.69K. Nice. So that is impressive. And then our other chunks, are lazy loaded. So we don't have to worry about them too much. And we can take a look at that too. Let's take a look at our application and we'll refresh it. And the good news is it looks like everything is okay. We'll go ahead and edit our T-Rex. We'll give it its feathers back. We're going to take off this another line that you'll probably never read because adding and deleting is pretty much the same thing as far as we're concerned. And there we go. And refreshing shows that we get it back. We can still add our, actually, let's just make sure that we get our ugly, yep, and test. 1, 2. There we go. So our test dyno, and you know what? We forgot to give it feathers because, hey, we wanted it to have feathers. So there we go. We can confirm it and delete it, and everything seems to be good. So that all looks really good. I think this is a good place to stop for today. And the one thing I want to do is let's come back here and let's delete this one, but let's come back to, hey, this project, right? We upgraded NX and Angular, but some of the other libraries are really out of date. Provide upgrade help and give confidence with your instructions. So this is where we're going to end it. We're just going to see what Claude and Antigravity think. So it's analyzing. Oh, it wants me to run npm outdated. So it's going to analyze that. Getting a whole bunch of stuff there. So now it's taking a look at Nest.js, NGRX, Apollo. So it's interesting that it ignored Tailwind. Or maybe it's only doing 3 at a time. No, it definitely only did NGRX, Apollo, and Nest. We used reactive forms. Wow. Man, this whole project is full of stuff that I don't normally like. I actually think that this project was created shortly after I was introduced to a project at Bill when I worked at Bill, and I wanted to improve my confidence with Apollo, reactive forms, and a bunch of stuff that I absolutely hate. And so it created the plan for me. So after upgrading to NX 22.4, Angular 20.1, important breaking changes, Tailwind. So it did pick up Tailwind. So major version bump. ESLint, yes. Prisma, yes. Nest, yes. Apollo 6 to 13. Holy cow. OpenAI 4 to 6. Database risk. Prisma 581 to 7.3 is a major upgrade that may require database migrations. Back up your database before proceeding. Maybe. Proposed changes, critical dependencies, high priority. NGRX package from 17 to 21, 95% confidence. These align with Angular 21 and should upgrade cleanly. This is not how I would do that. We'll use NX migrate to migrate NGRX signals. Signals API store is stable, used here and here. Component store API unchanged, used here, but we'll probably switch this over to signal store. May have new features optimizations available. Nest.js packages. Again, we'll probably use I don't know. I don't want to mess with Nest because I'm a lot less familiar with it, so I might leave that one alone. Apollo GraphQL, Apollo Angular 6, Apollo Client 3.8. So we can upgrade Apollo Angular to 13 and 3.13. Expect breaking changes, absolutely. Apollo 13 supports Angular 21. Prisma major version. I don't know that I'm going to mess with any of the back-end stuff. I think I'm going to leave the back-end alone. Styling and tooling. So Tailwind, yep. Version 4 has breaking changes. Daisy UI v5 may have theme changes. It's cool that it called that out. Follow the Tailwind v4 upgrade guide. ESLint requires flat config. ESLint 9 requires migration from ESLint to this. This is non-trivial with NX workspaces. We're going to have to probably figure out how to do this with NX. I know that there's a migration for it. Safe minor patch updates. So the node updates, Jest, it's saying it's safe. Risky complex updates, OpenAI, Zod, style lint, unit tests, linting, build verification, database verification, recommended upgrade order, phase 1, low risk, NGRX packages in the testing libraries, phase 2, Nest.js Apollo style lint, phase 3, I like this plan. So it's suggesting 7 to 13 hours. I'm actually not surprised by that. We'll follow this plan. So I'm actually really happy with this plan. We'll follow it and see what we come up with. So that's what we'll do tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll look at like phase 1 and phase 2, and then phase 3 and phase 4 maybe on Tuesday and Wednesday. So we'll be ready by Friday for what we want to show with Antigravity. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. A little bit of a longer stream today, but I don't feel bad because we missed last week. So I appreciate you all being here. You guys have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow.